Hi everyone, my name is Ian Ochoa. This is my week 2 presentation. I'm going to be walking through 6 topics where Americans often have some misconceptions: the Constitution, federalism, prosecutorial discretion, mediation and arbitration, civil rights, and the 15th Amendment. I'll be pulling information from both the textbook and the videos for this week, and I'll explain what people often get wrong and how we can look at things more clearly. So, without further ado, let's get started. First up, let's begin with the Constitution. A lot of people think it's the only system of government we've ever had, but the video reminded us that before 1789, we had the Articles of Confederation, and they didn't work well. Congress couldn't tax, there was no president, and the system was basically too weak to hold the country together. The Constitution was written as a solution to those failures, not as a perfect starting point. Uh, so the misconception is that the Constitution came out fully formed, but in reality, it came out of trial and error. And that connects right into federalism, which is another area where people often get confused. Federalism is often misunderstood as the national government being in charge of the states, but as the textbook and video explained, it's really about sharing sharing power. Some powers belong to the federal government, like making treaties, while others are left to the states, like regulating health and safety. The framers wanted a balance, not total national control, but not total state independence either. So the misconception here is thinking federalism means one side is the boss. It's really more of a partnership, even if it's a messy one sometimes. Now we're moving on into structure, how the system actually works in practice. So we'll talk about prosecutors. Prosecutorial discretion. Many people assume that if someone breaks the law, prosecutors are required to bring charges, but that's not how it works. This week's videos explain that prosecutors use discretion. They weigh the evidence, the chance of a conviction, and the bigger picture of whether moving forward serves justice. Sometimes not charging a case is the responsible choice. The misconception here is that prosecutors are just law enforcers, when in reality they make judgment calls that shape outcomes for both individuals and communities. And speaking of judgment calls, let's clear up mediation and arbitration because people mix those up all the time. So mediation and arbitration, people often use the words interchangeably, but mediation and arbitration are very different. Mediation is more like a guided conversation. A mediator helps both sides talk through the problem and hopefully come to an agreement, whereas arbitration is closer to a private trial. The arbitrator listens to both sides and then makes a decision, which is usually binding. Both are alternatives to court, but the goals are different. Mediation is about cooperation, while arbitration is about resolution. The misconception here is treating them as the same process when one is voluntary and flexible, and the other is formal and final. From there, it's worth looking at rights because this is another area where the words get mixed up. So civil rights. A lot of people confuse civil rights with civil liberties. This week's videos broke it down really clearly. Civil liberties are protections from government, things the government can't do, like restrict free speech. Civil rights are protections from people against discrimination by majorities, like guaranteeing equal treatment under the law. So civil liberties keep government in check, and civil rights make sure everyone is treated fairly. The misconception is using those terms as if they mean the same thing, when they're really two different kinds of protections. And finally, let's talk about the 15th Amendment, another example where what's promised on paper didn't match reality. Most people learn that the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote and assume it's worked right away. The truth is, even after it passed in 1870, Southern states found ways around it: poll taxes, literacy tests, intimidation, and even violence. The Supreme Court allowed those tactics as they looked race neutral. So while the amendment said one thing, the practice was completely different. It wasn't until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that the federal government really enforced it. The misconception is thinking the amendment guaranteed voting rights immediately, when in fact it took almost 100 years to become real. So, across these 6 topics, there's a common theme. What we assume about government and law doesn't always line up with the history or the reality. The Constitution wasn't perfect from day one. Federalism isn't about control. Prosecutors and dispute resolution involve discretion. Rights have different meanings, and amendments don't always deliver overnight. By looking at our texts and videos for this week and clearing up these misconceptions, we get a better sense of how American government actually works. So that will conclude my presentation for this week. Thank you all for watching.